Kenny's voice thundered through the small sitting room again that morning. The clock had not even reached 7 when his anger filled the house like smoke. "Vera, where is my food?" he shouted. Vera came out of the kitchen quietly, holding a tray. She looked tired, her eyes swollen from the tears she had cried the night before. "It's here," she said softly, placing the plate on the table. Kenny pushed the chair roughly and sat down. "Cold again? Do you expect me to eat this nonsense?" Vera swallowed hard. "I'm sorry. The gas finished, so I—" Before she could finish, his palm landed on her cheek. The sound echoed in the room, and their 7-year-old daughter, Ella, who was playing with her doll, dropped it and froze. "Don't ever talk back at me again," Kenny barked. "Do you hear me?" Vera touched her cheek slowly, the sting burning deep. "Yes," she whispered. Ella ran to her mother and hugged her leg tightly. "Mummy, please don't cry," she whispered. Kenny's eyes softened for a moment when he saw Ella, but his pride didn't allow him to show guilt. He simply hissed and walked out, slamming the door behind him. Vera knelt beside her daughter and tried to smile. "It's okay, my love. Mummy's fine." But she wasn't. Her heart was breaking, piece by piece, every single day. When Kenny returned that night, he came back drunk and smelling of perfume that wasn't hers. He didn't bother to hide his secret anymore. "Who is she, Kenny?" Vera asked, her voice shaking. He laughed, leaning against the wall. "Don't start your nonsense tonight, Vera. I'm not in the mood." Vera's eyes filled with tears. "You think I don't know? You go out every night and come back smelling of another woman. You've changed. What did I do to deserve this?" "You talk too much," he shouted, throwing his cup at the wall. "You're just a burden, Vera. Always crying, always complaining. Look at you. No spark, no excitement. I deserve better." That night, Vera didn't sleep. She lay beside Ella and watched the ceiling, wondering how love could turn into pain so quickly. Weeks turned into months. The insults grew worse. The beatings became normal. One afternoon, while Kenny was at work, a strange woman came to the house. She looked bold, dressed in bright clothes, and wore too much perfume. "Who are you looking for?" Vera asked politely. The woman smiled in a way that made Vera uncomfortable. "Kenny, of course. He told me he lives here." Vera's face turned pale. "You're joking." "No joke," the woman said, looking around proudly. "He said he will soon send his old wife away, so I came to see where I'll be living." Vera's hands trembled. "You should leave now," she said quietly, "before I lose my patience." The woman rolled her eyes and laughed. "Lose it, madam. You'll soon be the one losing this house too." Before Vera could respond, Kenny walked in. His eyes widened when he saw them both. "Vera, what's going on here?" "I should be asking you," she shouted, her voice breaking. "You brought her here, to my home?" Kenny looked embarrassed but quickly covered it with anger. "Don't you raise your voice at me." He turned to the woman and said, "Go to the car, baby. I'll handle this." "Baby," Vera repeated, her lips trembling. "Kenny, how could you?" He didn't answer. He simply pointed toward the door. "Pack your things, Vera. I want you out of this house before tomorrow morning." For a long moment the room was silent. Even the clock seemed to stop ticking. Vera looked at him, her eyes full of disbelief. "You're sending me and your daughter away?" Kenny looked away. "You heard me." Ella ran to her father, tears in her eyes. "Daddy, please don't send Mummy away." He brushed her off gently. "Go to your room, Ella." Vera's lips quivered, but she didn't beg anymore. She had begged too many times. "Fine," she said quietly. "But one day, Kenny, you'll look for peace in the same place you destroyed it." That night she packed a small bag with Ella's clothes, some old pictures, and a few notes she had saved secretly. When she walked out of the house at dawn, the air was cold and the road empty. Ella held her hand tightly. "Mummy, where are we going?" Vera forced a smile. "Somewhere better, my love. Somewhere Daddy can't hurt us anymore." The first days on the street were hard. They begged, They slept under shop shades and sometimes ate bread and water. But Vera refused to give up. She kept telling Ella stories at night, stories about hope, courage, and love that doesn't hurt. One evening, while sitting outside a supermarket, a black SUV stopped near them. A tall, calm-looking man stepped out. He looked at Vera with concern. "Madam, are you okay?" he asked gently. Vera looked away shyly. "We're fine, just trying to find our way." The man smiled kindly. "I'm Richie," he said. "You look like you need some help." For the first time in many months, someone looked at Vera with kindness. Not pity, not anger, but kindness. Meanwhile, back at Kenny's house, the new woman, Cammy, had already moved in. She was bold, loud, and never afraid to talk back. Kenny thought she would be easy to control like Vera, but he was wrong. One morning he shouted from the bedroom, "Cammy, where's my breakfast?" Cammy appeared at the door, holding a frying pan. "In the kitchen. You have hands, don't you?" Kenny blinked. "What did you just say?" She dropped the pan on the table with a loud clang. "You heard me. You think I'm Vera? Try me, Kenny. Just try me." Kenny's jaw tightened. "You don't talk to me like that." Cammy stepped closer, her eyes sharp. "Then don't talk to me like I'm your housemaid." For the first time in his life, Kenny didn't know what to say. He was used to being feared, not challenged. Days turned into weeks, and soon Cammy's strength became his nightmare. She argued, shouted, and sometimes threw things when he shouted back. Once, when he tried to raise his hand, she caught it mid-air and slapped him instead. That night, Kenny sat on his bed, holding his face, and whispered to himself, "What kind of life is this?" At that same moment, somewhere far away, Vera and Ella were laughing over a warm dinner. Richie had found them a small apartment and helped Vera start a small shop. For the first time in years, she felt alive again. Ella looked up at her and said, "Mummy, you're smiling again." Vera laughed softly. "That's because I finally have a reason to." Richie watched them from across the table, smiling quietly. Something in Vera's calmness drew him closer every day. But destiny had its own way of balancing the world. As Vera found light again, Kenny sank deeper into darkness, living with a woman who showed him exactly what he once gave. For the first time, he began to understand pain, regret, and loneliness. But it was too late. Or maybe not completely too late. Because life sometimes gives a second chance, not to repeat the past, but to face it and seek forgiveness. Vera woke up one bright morning to the sound of birds outside the small apartment Richie had rented for her and Ella. The sun peeped through the curtain, and for the first time in a long while, she smiled before getting out of bed. "Good morning, my love," she said, brushing Ella's hair gently. Ella smiled sleepily. "Morning, Mummy. Did we dream in the same place again?" Vera laughed softly. "Maybe we did." Life had started to change. The pain didn't disappear overnight, but peace had slowly replaced fear. Richie came by often, sometimes bringing food, sometimes flowers, but mostly bringing laughter. He would tease Ella until she giggled uncontrollably, and every time Vera saw them together, something warm filled her heart. One afternoon, Richie stopped by with a big bag. "Surprise," he said cheerfully. Ella's eyes widened. "What is it, Uncle Richie?" "Uniform," he said. "It's time for school, young lady." Vera's eyes filled with tears. "You did this?" He shrugged, smiling shyly. "A bright child deserves a chance." Ella ran to hug him tightly. "Thank you." As Richie looked down at her small arms around him, he thought of how much strength both mother and daughter had. Vera was quiet, but her silence carried power. "Don't thank me yet," he said playfully. "You still have homework waiting." Vera laughed for the first time in front of him, a real laugh. And that sound made Richie's day. Meanwhile, Kenny's house was no longer peaceful. Cammy's loud music blasted every morning. She spent his money carelessly, insulted him in front of his friends, and turned the house into a war zone. "Kenny!" she shouted one evening. "Where's my money?" He looked up from the chair, exhausted. "Cammy, you just took 50,000 yesterday." "And so?" she snapped. "You think food cooks itself? You think beauty is free?" Kenny rubbed his head. "I'm tired, Cammy." "Good," she replied sharply. "Now you know how tired Vera must have been." Her words hit him like a knife. He looked up at her, speechless. That night, Kenny couldn't sleep. Every corner of the house reminded him of Vera, the way she used to arrange things neatly, the quiet laughter of Ella, the soft prayers Vera used to say before bed. Now, all that was gone. Only noise remained. Days passed, and the fights worsened. Cammy once threw his phone out the window because he didn't answer her fast enough. Another time, she locked him outside for coming home late. Neighbors whispered that Kenny had finally met his match. One morning, after a terrible argument, Kenny tried to slap Cammy again, but before his hand could land, she caught it and pushed him back so hard he fell. "You dare raise that hand again? I'll break it," she said coldly. Kenny sat on the floor, holding his chest, shocked and humiliated. From that day, he stopped shouting. He started avoiding her. But the damage was already done. Back at Vera's new home, life was getting brighter. Her small shop was growing, customers loved her calmness, and Richie often dropped by to help. One day, Vera stood outside her shop, watching the sunset when Richie arrived. "You're always working," he said, leaning on the wall beside her. She smiled faintly. "Work keeps my mind busy." "Do you still think about him?" Richie asked gently. Vera sighed. "Sometimes, not because I miss him, but because of the scars he left. Some days I still feel them." Richie nodded. "Pain doesn't disappear, Vera, but it can teach us who we really are." She looked at him with quiet admiration. "You talk like an old man." He chuckled. "Maybe I was born that way." They both laughed, and for the first time, Vera's heart opened a little more. A few months later, Richie invited Vera and Ella to a family dinner. Richie's mother, Mama T, was warm and friendly. She welcomed Vera with open arms. "So, this is the beautiful woman my son can't stop talking about," she said with a wide smile. Vera blushed. "Good evening, Ma." Ella hugged Mama T's leg and everyone laughed. The evening was filled with laughter and gentle conversations. Vera couldn't remember the last time she had felt so accepted, so loved. After dinner, Richie walked her home. The street was quiet, the stars bright. "Vera," he said softly, "I know you've been through a lot. I won't rush you, but I want you to know I care about you deeply." She looked down, shy but smiling. "You've done enough, Richie. You helped me stand again." He smiled. "Then let me keep standing beside you." That was the beginning of something new, not forced, not rushed, but real. Back in Kenny's house, Cammy's behavior grew worse. She started coming home late, sometimes drunk, sometimes not coming at all. Kenny tried to talk to her, but she laughed in his face. "You think you own me?" she said. "You don't even own your peace anymore." That night, Kenny sat alone on the sofa, staring at the empty bottles around him. His eyes were hollow, his pride broken. He finally realized what he had lost. Not just Vera, but his daughter, his peace, and his home. One morning, Kenny woke up to find Cammy gone. She had packed her things and left a short note on the table. "I'm done. You're not even worth fighting anymore." He sat there for a long time, staring at the note. Then he laughed bitterly. "Maybe this is what I deserve," he said quietly. For the first time, he dropped to his knees and cried. At that same moment, Vera was getting ready for Ella's school graduation. She wore a soft blue gown that made her look graceful and strong. Richie arrived to pick them up, smiling from ear to ear. "Are my two favorite ladies ready?" he asked cheerfully. Ella giggled. "Yes, Uncle Richie." Vera smiled, adjusting her dress. "Let's go before she makes us late." At the event, Vera felt proud as she watched Ella receive a small award. She clapped until her hands hurt. Richie leaned close and whispered, You've done well, Vera. Tears filled her eyes. No, we've done well. That night, after the event, Richie dropped them home and lingered at the door. Vera, he said softly, there's something I've wanted to say for a long time. She looked at him curiously. What is it? He smiled gently. I love you. Her heart skipped. It wasn't sudden, she had felt it too, but hearing it made her feel alive again. After a long pause, she whispered, I love you too. That was the night everything changed, the night Vera truly moved forward. Far across town, Kenny sat alone in the dark, surrounded by silence. For once, he didn't want to drink. He wanted to think. He thought about Vera, her patience, her tears, her quiet strength. He thought about Ella's little arms hugging him before he pushed her away, and he broke down. I ruined everything, he said to himself. God, I ruined everything. He stayed on his knees until morning, whispering the same words again and again. I'm sorry. Vera woke up to a soft breeze brushing her face. The morning sun filtered through the curtains, and Ella's soft breathing filled the small room. She turned and smiled at her daughter, who was clutching her teddy bear tightly. Life had changed in ways she never imagined. A year ago, she was crying by the roadside, unsure of where to go. Now, she had peace, love, and laughter. Richie had become part of their world, gentle, caring, and patient. He never raised his voice, never made her feel small. He made her laugh over little things, and Ella had started calling him Uncle Daddy. Every time she heard it, her heart melted. One Sunday morning after church, Richie held Vera's hand as they walked home. You've been quiet today, he said softly. Vera smiled faintly. I was just thinking, life can really surprise you. He looked at her warmly. Good surprise or bad one? She laughed lightly. Good. For once, it's good. Richie stopped walking and faced her. Then maybe it's time for another surprise. She blinked. What do you mean? He took a small box from his pocket. Vera, will you marry me? For a moment she froze. The street disappeared. The air stood still. Then, slowly, tears filled her eyes. Richie, she whispered. Yes. He smiled and slipped the ring on her finger. People nearby clapped and cheered as Ella ran forward shouting, Mummy said yes. That evening, Vera sat quietly, staring at the ring. She thought of her past, the pain, the tears, the rejection, and now this new beginning. She whispered, Thank you, God. Meanwhile, Kenny's life had sunk even lower. His business was collapsing, his friends had left, and Cammy had disappeared completely. One night, he sat alone in the dark, listening to the echo of his empty house. He hadn't heard laughter there in months. He hadn't seen Ella's smile. He reached for his phone and opened an old picture, Vera and Ella smiling on Ella's 5th birthday. His eyes watered. I destroyed everything, he murmured. He dropped the phone and buried his face in his hands. That night, for the first time in years, he prayed, not out of routine, but out of desperation. God, if you can still hear me, please forgive me. And if Vera ever sees me again, let her forgive me too. Weeks later, Vera and Richie's wedding was simple but beautiful. Friends, neighbors, and church members gathered under a white tent filled with fresh flowers. Vera looked radiant in her lace gown, her smile gentle and peaceful. Richie couldn't take his eyes off her. When the pastor said, "You may kiss your bride," the crowd cheered. Ella clapped excitedly, shouting, "Finally!" Everyone laughed. That night, as Vera sat beside her new husband, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Safety. She looked at him and whispered, "Thank you for loving me even when I was broken." Richie smiled and kissed her hand. "You were never broken, Vera. You were just waiting to be valued." Far across town, Kenny got the news. One of his old friends called to tell him Vera had remarried. He froze, his chest tightening. "She's married?" he repeated weakly. Yes, his friend said. To that rich man, Richie. I heard they're happy. Kenny ended the call quietly and sat for a long time, staring at nothing. He wasn't angry. He couldn't be. He had no right. Instead, he whispered, "I'm glad she found peace." But the emptiness inside him grew heavier. One afternoon, while walking to a small job he had taken to survive, Kenny saw a familiar face at the market. Ella. She was taller now, with bright eyes and a shy smile. She was holding Vera's hand. Vera turned slowly and saw him. For a few seconds, no one spoke. The past, the pain, the memories, everything hung in the air. Kenny looked down, his voice trembling. "Vera." Ella held her mother's hand tighter. Vera's heart pounded, but she stayed calm. "Kenny." He nodded slowly, unable to meet her eyes. "You look different, happy." "I am," she said softly. He nodded again, tears forming. "I deserve what I'm going through. I hurt you. I hurt our child." Ella looked confused. "Mummy, is this my daddy?" Vera nodded gently. "Yes, my love. This is your father." Kenny knelt down. "Ella, Daddy is sorry. I was a foolish man. Can you forgive me?" The little girl looked at him quietly, then nodded. "Mummy says we should always forgive people." Kenny's tears fell freely. "Thank you, my princess." Vera's eyes were wet too, but her voice was firm. "Kenny, I forgave you a long time ago, but I can't go back." He nodded slowly. "I understand. I just hope," she continued softly, "that you've learned something. Love isn't control, Kenny. It's patience." He bowed his head. "I've learned, Vera, the hard way." For the first time in years, they spoke without shouting, just two people facing what was left of a broken story. After that day, Kenny began to change. He started attending church, stopped drinking, and even began volunteering at a small youth center. People around him noticed he was quieter, calmer, almost humble. One evening, after a long day of cleaning at the center, he sat alone under a tree and smiled faintly. "Maybe this is what peace feels like," he said softly. Vera's life, on the other hand, bloomed. Her shop grew into a small supermarket. Richie stood by her, proud and loving. Ella thrived in school, always top of her class, always full of laughter. Sometimes when Vera watched her play, she thought of how far they'd come, from sleeping by the roadside to living in joy. Richie would tease her, saying, "Madam Vera, don't smile too much before customers think you're giving free things." She would laugh. "If happiness is free, let them take it." They laughed often. They loved deeply. One Sunday afternoon, Kenny walked quietly into Vera's supermarket. She looked up from the counter and froze for a moment. "Kenny," she said softly. He smiled weakly. "Don't be afraid. I just came to say, thank you." "For what?" she asked. "For forgiving me. You saved me without even knowing it." Vera looked at him gently. "I'm glad you found peace." He nodded. "I have. And I wanted to see you one last time, to tell you that I pray for you and Richie every day." Vera's eyes softened. "Thank you, Kenny." He smiled, then turned to leave. "Take care of Ella. She deserves the world." Vera watched him walk away slowly, shoulders slightly bent, but peaceful. For the first time, she didn't feel anger or sadness, only calm. That night, Vera sat outside with Richie, the stars twinkling above. "Do you think people can really change?" she asked. Richie nodded. "Yes, pain has a way of teaching what pride never could." She smiled faintly. "Kenny came by today." Richie looked at her, surprised. "What did he say?" "That he prays for us." Richie took her hand gently. "Then maybe he's finally free." They sat in silence for a while, the night breeze soft around them. Ella's laughter echoed from inside, and Vera smiled. "I used to think my story ended the day Kenny chased me out," she said softly. "But now I know. It only began that day." Richie squeezed her hand. and it became beautiful. No matter how powerful or proud a person feels, life has a way of teaching lessons through the pain we cause others. Love is not about control or pride. It's about respect, forgiveness, and understanding. Vera's strength reminds us that walking away doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's the first step toward true peace. If you are a woman facing same problem as Vera, please don't think twice. Just pack your things and leave that marriage before it's too late. Say no to domestic violence. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more touching, emotional, and powerful life stories. Turn on your notification bell so you don't miss the next one.